Anyway, okay. So, the topic for this week is to continue where we sort of left off last time, which was 2 weeks ago. We were talking about feelings and emotions, and we covered quite a lot of ground. And we'll do an exercise, and then we'll, I suppose, have a little bit of a recap, and then we'll see where we go from there and what else crops up, comes to mind, whatever. So, let's begin by. You missed your clapping. We'll have a clap. We'll have a nice clap, just to help us warm up as well. Get us in the mood. So, actually, I'm going to do this tomorrow. I'm playing tomorrow down at the Lighthouse. They do the smuggler session. Play my guitar, and I always do a bit in the middle when I play. I do like a bit of mindfulness or something in the middle. And I thought I'd do the clapping. If I've got a pub full of people, see how it goes down with like 50 people rather than just 10.
People and alcohol. That would be good.
Well, exactly. That's what I'm thinking. That's what I'm thinking. If they're all a little bit inebriated, it could just be really ramshackle and just.
Like applause.
Well, that's it, exactly. If nobody's clapping me because I'm playing, then we'll just do that and it's being forced applause. That's the way to do it. Okay, right, everybody knows what to do. Brace yourselves. Not bad for the first one. Usually it's rubbish, that was pretty good. It always reminds me of Blazing Saddles. Always. I do like that. Okay. So last time we were talking about feelings and emotions. We talked a bit about suppressed emotions and why people suppress them, and also what feelings are and what emotions are. So I think the conclusion that we came to was that our feelings and our emotions are responses to situations. Possibly, we weren't definitive on this, possibly with the exception of happiness. Happiness being one of the feelings that we can experience and feel without a reason. You know, we can't really be sad for no reason. Some people probably feel that they are sad for no reason, but if you do start actually digging around, you do come up with the reason why you're sad. Whereas happiness, you can actually be happy just because you're happy. So feelings and emotions are responses to what's happening. Generally, hopefully, what's happening in the present moment, if we're being mindful, it's what's happening now. Often, for many people, it's responses to things that have gone on in the past. And we also talked about how and why people suppress emotions, because often a lot of problems that people have come from suppressed feelings, suppressed emotions. And they may be suppressed because people can't cope with whatever feeling or emotion is presented or they're experiencing at that point in time, and they think, oh, I can't cope with this, I don't want to feel this, so they bury it down. Or they feel that they shouldn't be feeling that way. I shouldn't feel like this, so I refuse to feel like this, and so they bury it down. Another reason, which I don't think we talked about last time, but which I realised, is that sometimes feelings can be suppressed because people actually aren't aware of them. You know, we talked about awareness and awareness of our feelings and how important that is, particularly if we're mindful, to be aware of how we feel. But if we're not aware of how we feel, if we don't recognise the feelings that we have, then they will become suppressed again, because we don't really experience them, we're not aware of them. So again, they can become suppressed in that way. Another reason why they become suppressed is because we refuse to accept them. We refuse to accept that this is how we feel. And obviously that's one of the fundamental elements to mindfulness, is acceptance. Accepting what is happening in the present moment. So accepting the circumstances, the things that we can see, the things that are going on, the situation that we find ourselves in, and also accepting how that makes us feel. How it makes us feel, how we feel about that, how the people that we're interacting with in that moment in time, how they make us feel, possibly even accepting how they feel. Not that we can experience how they feel, but accept that they feel the way they feel, rather than maybe trying to project on them how they should feel. So, failing to accept how we feel can lead to feelings and emotions becoming suppressed and buried away, ready to cause us problems in the future. And failing to accept them is a very non-mindful way of being. Because obviously this is all about the mindful response and the mindful approach. Another element to it is control. And the desire to control the way that we feel. And I'll open that up to you guys at this point. Does anybody here feel that they want to be able to control how they feel?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Are you able to control how you feel?
No.
Is there a reason why you are unable to control how you feel?
Probably, because everybody is.
I'll flip the question around. Is it because you shouldn't try and control how you feel?
It's a good point.
I would argue that's exactly it. We try to control how we feel. And we think this is, go back to that question of this is how I shouldn't be feeling this way. Or this is not the appropriate way to feel and the appropriate emotion to have at this point in time. So I need to change it. I need to feel differently. I want to take control of it. Control my emotions, control my feelings. When that's a very difficult, nay, would I say impossible thing to do. Because it all happens at a very, well, at what level? What level do our feelings and our emotions happen? It's not necessarily a conscious decision. I think it can be at times. The decision, happiness can be a decision. We can decide to be happy. We can take control in that aspect, because some people do just plain refuse to be happy, whereas if you actually decide, make the decision to be happy, it can happen. But in terms of controlling other emotions, and certainly negative emotions, it's nigh on impossible, because it happens at a level, whether it's a level above or below, I don't know whether it is above or below our conscious thought and what we can control consciously. And so the mindful approach is not to try and control it. Don't try and feel differently to how you feel. The only way to actually attempt to take some control over it is to be aware of it and to accept it. So by being mindful, by being aware of how you feel in the first instance, okay, this is how I feel. Accepting how you feel, okay, I accept that this is how I feel at this point in time. And then being able to just take that step back, which is what mindfulness affords us to be able to do, to kind of become the observer, because we are just aware and accepting of our thoughts, our ideas, our emotions, our feelings. Then because we can take that little step back, that's almost all the control that you need, because you just become slightly distanced from it and you're just an observer.
I was thinking, there's a couple of things just come up. for example, if you've got somebody that's died, for example, you know, maybe you're like the centre of the family, and you've got to be strong for everybody else. So you put your grief to one side, timing wise. You get on with doing all the funeral, and then later on, when it's all blown over, you can feel it. You know, that's suppressing it, I guess. Put it on hold.
Yeah.
Maybe.
So yes, and it's okay to do that. It's okay to feel that, to be the person that has, you know, I suppose, be the person that has to be practical.
But many people don't give themselves that.
They don't give themselves. No, they don't then give themselves the space and the opportunity to grieve and to be aware of how they feel.
The other one I thought of is if you're in a relationship and you're in that relationship, you can't assess your real feelings because you're in a relationship. Like daily life's catching up with you, and you just get on with it, and you don't take that time out and just go, well, you know, is this right for me? You know, whatever.
Yeah. Well, that's often the case with a lot of things. When you're immersed in it, because you're so close to it, it's very difficult to actually step back and be aware of what's going on and accept what's going on, and that's the principle of mindfulness. Whatever it is, not just emotional situations, but also, you know, just the busyness of life. You know, people become engrossed in work, and they don't afford themselves the opportunity to just step back a little bit. And because they're so engrossed in it and they're so close to it, and they allow it to overpower them, they become stressed and anxious and ill because they're too close to it, because they're not mindful.
And if you are mindful and you are allowing yourself the time and concentration, if you like, to feel it, then, you know, if it's an ongoing feeling, then maybe it's like, for example, pain. If you cut yourself, it tells you something, doesn't it? Like that was dangerous, or put yourself in a hot pan, and you go, oh, it's instant, it's pain. It tells you to get your hand away. It's a necessary emotion and a necessary feeling, if you like. And I think probably all feelings are probably necessary.
Well, they are. Yes. They are,
but sometimes they get a bit too strong. Maybe.
Well, what can often happen is our brains think that they're doing us a favour and think that they're taking control, because for example, so the hand on the hot plate. You put your hand on the hot plate, instantly there's that reaction to take it away, to prevent yourself doing any other damage, and then your unconscious mind remembers that. And remembers hot plate, hand, Bernie, don't do again. So you don't. And then, but it also tries to do the same thing at an emotional level. So whilst with the physical pain, it's a bit easier because it's cause and effect. You know, that on there burns, ouch, we don't do that again. Whereas on an emotional level, it's a lot more difficult. The cause and effect is a lot harder to ascertain. You know, what at an unconscious level our brains go, okay, so that hurt us, we don't want to go into that situation again, so how do we avoid it? And then your sort of unconscious mind develops all these stupid coping mechanisms or mechanisms for diverting us from that pain that happened at an emotional level, which is a lot more convoluted and complicated than simply not putting your hand on the hot plate. But what also happens is our brains then kind of put in extra steps. So for example, if we know that the hot plate is in the kitchen, the stupid brain would say, don't go in the kitchen, then you won't put your hand on the hot plate and you won't burn your hand. So it then removes it one more bit, and then you think, okay, well, and then it can go one stage further. You go, okay, well, we won't go downstairs, because if we go downstairs, we might go in the kitchen, and if we go in the kitchen, then we might put our hand on the hot plate. Now that sounds stupid to us on a very practical cause and effect level of pain, but at an emotional level, it happens all the time. Unconsciously, we do it all the time. Oh, I won't get involved in a relationship, because if I get involved in a relationship, I might pick the wrong person to be in a relationship with, and then there will be fights and arguments, and then if there's fights and arguments, there will be emotional pain or whatever, you know. And so all of a sudden you're 4 steps removed from what's actually causing the problem. And we're, you know, then before you know it, you're living on your own with more cats than is healthy. Because you've removed yourself all those steps. From, you know, whatever it might be. Oh, I won't go out and socialise. I won't make friends because, you know, 20 years ago a friend let me down. And so we put all those steps in place to prevent us from being hurt emotionally.
Is that how kind of like a phobia develops?
Exactly. Yeah, that's exactly how phobias develop.
Like I asked a question at school.
No, you're dead right. Well, it does. You know, she was working with a lady recently who had a terrible spider phobia. And hers went back to when she was a young child, would stay at her grandmother's house, and they had an outside toilet. So she'd go into the outside toilet, which was full of cobwebs and spiders, and when you're 8 years old and you've got to go, not only have you got the trauma of to go outside to go for a wee, but there's all this adding to the fear. And that was, she was middle-aged, so that was probably 40 years ago. But now that's built up over time, and the way that that manifests itself is that she had to go around, you know, spraying the whole house with insecticide and doing all these kinds of things. And so the steps, she wasn't actually afraid of spiders anymore. She was afraid that she would encounter a spider and have a panic attack. So she was actually afraid of the panic attack. She wasn't afraid of the spider.
Oh, that's
you know, see, that's how things develop. You then become afraid of being afraid. You're no longer afraid of what it is that actually scared you. So all those steps come in. We put all those steps in front of it, and we become afraid of all of those, the whole path, not just the bit at the end of it. It happens all the time, because we put in all these to avoid the confrontation, to avoid having to be confronted with the spider. We put in all these extra bits, and then every step that we put in place is another thing to be afraid of before we actually. Whereas if you can be mindful and accept and be aware of the relationship you're in, the spider, the emotion that you're feeling, the upset and anguish over whatever, then all those steps that we put in place are broken down, they evaporate, whatever. I don't know what happens to them, but it's a way. That's a way of taking control. Now the next element to think about is changing the way we feel. We talked about control, and I suppose we've talked a bit about change. Before we do that, let's do another exercise, and let's just sit and start by having a little look around to see what we can see in this moment. And then when you've had a little look around, you can close your eyes and just be aware of your body sat in the chair. Just gradually be aware of everything that you can feel. Start at the top of your head and just work your way down slowly. Gradually work your way down through your bottom in contact with the seat, down through your legs, past your knees, and finally ending up with aware of your feet, just resting on the floor inside your shoes. And then take a nice breath in through your nose, and just be aware of smell. And then be aware of taste, just as it is in this moment. And then we begin to listen. And over the next few moments, just be aware of sound and accept the sound as it happens. And as you listen and accept sound, you can begin to become aware of how you feel. And often we try to label how we feel. I feel happy, I feel sad, I feel anxious, I feel bored. But rather than trying to apply a label, just feel and just accept how you feel and be aware of how you feel. Okay, when you're ready, you can open your eyes. So we were just talking about taking control of how you feel, whether you can, whether you should, or whether you're able to control your feelings and your emotions. And then leading on from that is whether we can change how we feel. And we often do, don't we? Want to change the way we feel, particularly if we feel unhappy or sad or tense, angry. We want to change the way we feel. Is it possible to change how we feel? Is there any nod there? Yeah.
Yeah.
Certain to a degree.
To a degree.
Yeah.
I think definitely. But you've got to do something constructive to make it change.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Well, there's several aspects to it. First, yes, and it is possible to change the way that you are feeling in this moment, to change it to feel differently in a future moment. One, because it happens by itself anyway. Who feels the same all the time? Anybody feel the same all the time? No. We don't have a feel. You know, there isn't a standard default Jim Dawson feeling. There's a flat line. This is how Jim Dawson feels. No. It's like that. The way that we feel changes as much as the circumstances of our present moment changes, and the way that we respond to that changes how we feel. So, our feelings will change anyway, regardless of whether you actually do anything constructive about it or not. You will feel differently, and that's one of the important things to remember from a mindful perspective. Is if you become aware of how you feel in this moment and accept it, one of the things that makes it easy to accept how you feel is the knowledge that that is only how you feel at this moment, and it is not the way that you will feel forever. In coming moments, you will feel differently, and because that is the case, it makes it easier, or it should make it easier to accept how you feel in this moment. So that's one element to it, the fact that it does change by itself anyway, without us having to attempt to take control or do anything about it. Then the flip side is what we can do to change the way we feel. If you know, once we are aware of how we feel and accept how we feel, if we decide that we would like to feel differently, yes, there are things that can be done. So the first is we can make a decision. We can decide, okay, this is how I feel now, I accept this is how I feel now, I'm going to choose to feel differently. That's quite a difficult thing to do. It's possible, but it's quite a difficult thing to do. One of the best ways, once you are, and you have to be mindful first, there's no point in just kind of applying this willy-nilly. It works far more effectively if you are mindful and first are aware and then accept how you feel. And then, and I've talked about this one before, but it works a treat. And I was watching something the other day, and there was a lady that was a kind of a body language specialist, and she was talking about this kind of thing, and I've seen Anthony Robbins do it. And that is how our physical shape affects how we feel. You know, if I were to say, behind that door is somebody who is depressed and anxious and has low self-esteem and lacks confidence, how would you imagine they looked? How would they be standing? How would they carry themselves? How would they walk? Can you describe? Can you create an image of what they would look like? Yeah, like that. Their head would be down, and they'd have very close body language and have quite a submissive, you know, air to them. And yes, exactly like that. And if you adopt that shape yourself, I mean, I just did it then, and I actually could feel quite sorry for myself. And you do. But then if I were to say, now behind that door is somebody who is really confident, feels great, is happy, is really positive, and is not lacking in you know, has very good self-esteem. How would they be carrying themselves? How would they?
Anthony Robbins.
Exactly right. They'd be chin up, open, powerful in their physicals, the way they carry themselves, and they'd come striding in. And it's true. It actually affects how you feel. The states, the shape of your body affects your state. That's what Anthony says. Change your shape, change your state. And the lady I was watching, it was one of those TED Talks, and I can't remember the lady's name now, which I'm doing her a disservice because it was very good.
Was it Neil Lowndes?
I don't think it was. It might have been. I can't remember. But what she was advocating was that people adopt a power pose. It sounds stupid and it's a bit corny and it's a bit... I was watching it and I just had this image of Alan Partridge in my head going, "You're a tiger!" in the mirror. I just had that. But that's what she was advocating, that for 2 minutes a day, you stand, and then she had Wonder Woman up on the screen. You stand like Wonder Woman, like that, and you just go into the bathroom.
In a dress.
Like that. Do the superhero pose, yeah, with your tight red shorts on with the stars on, the little gold whip. Have you seen my outfit? Have you been peeking through my window? You've seen those other YouTube videos. But that, you can do that. And it does work. It doesn't have to be Wonder Woman. You can, but it's just adopt a powerful pose. But just be. I suppose the trick is when you are mindful, when you apply mindfulness and become aware, that's when you notice and become aware of what shape you're making. And if you do feel, I feel a little bit, I feel sorry for myself. As you become aware that that is how you feel, you will also become aware that you're adopting the shape of somebody that feels in that way. And as you become aware that that's the shape that you've adopted, you can then respond, and then you can make a decision. You can go, okay, I could do something about that. Ta-da! And then you can evoke some kind of change. And it sounds corny, I know.
I think it's a brilliant.
But honestly, it works. It does work because your brain responds to your body in so many ways that we just can't comprehend. For instance, and this is something that sports people do: visualization. If gymnasts, if they're attempting a particular move, say they're on the asymmetric bars and they're attempting some fancy somersault thing and they're struggling, they will dismount, they will sit back and they will just run through it in their mind and visualise themselves doing it and just go through the motions in their mind several times. And then automatically the muscles that are involved in doing the twist and the pike and the catch and all the whatever it is, prepare themselves and kind of practice the move, even though they're not doing it on the bars, they're just doing it as a visualisation. Then, when they get back on the bars, for some reason are just able to do it.
I worked with a couple of Olympic ping pong champions.
Right, yeah.
Both Korean. One was a gold medal winner and one was his coach, who was also a previous gold medal winner. And I said to him, "Do you visualise it?" And he went, "Yeah, of course." It was like, "Well, the thing you said, of course we do."
Yeah.
It was like, if you didn't do it, you wouldn't succeed, basically.
It's true. I remember reading about a guy that was taken captive in one of the conflicts somewhere, and he was locked away in horrible conditions, and he enjoyed golf when he was at home. So to keep himself sane whilst he was incarcerated, he would play every single day. He would play 18 holes of golf in his head, every shot from the first tee all the way through to the 18th green, and he would visualise a round of golf, and he would do that every day. And then finally, after he was certainly captive for over a year. It was a fair chunk of time. And he got out, and he got home, and he went and played golf sort of a few days after he'd been released. Played the best he'd played for years, and he'd not swung a club at all because he'd been in captivity. In captivity, that makes him sound like a zoo animal. He'd been incarcerated, held captive. But he played a brilliant round of golf because He practiced, he visualised it in his head, and his muscles and and all of that was working because he visualised it. And that's the same. That's kind of the flip side of it. We can visualise something and our body responds to it. In the same way, we can do something with our body and our brain responds to it. I suppose that's the point I'm trying to make. Is it's not just about visualising yourself being happy. It's the flip side of that. Is do something physically that's positive and strong, and your brain will mirror that. There we go. Okay. So now you know what to do. Or now you know how it works. You're aware, you accept, and then you can make a decision. You can either do nothing because you accept the fact that the feeling that you have now will change. You can enjoy it if you're feeling good. You're aware of it, because that's another thing as well. I suppose a lot of what I've talked about, and other people mentioned, is often we focus on the negative. We focus on when we feel anxious. We focus on when we feel sad. Often that's why people come to things like this, is because they feel rubbish and they want to feel better about their life and about themselves. But it's important to focus on the happy stuff as well. I'm sure happy things happen. Is there anybody here that has nothing happy happen to them at all? Surely everybody must have some. We're not all that. I'd like to think that there are things. I know, we all have struggles, but I'm sure we have moments of pleasure and moments of joy in our lives. And so it's important to be aware of those. When they happen, even if they're only, tiny. Now, I'm sure it must be hard. Are your kids still yeah. And that must be hard. But there must still be those moments when you Skype them or you talk to them. There you go. And there's those moments when you think, as much as you miss them, there's still probably moments because there's still the contact.
Yeah.
So when there are those moments, it's just important to be aware of them and actually enjoy them, so that you get the most from them, rather than, because it's easy, isn't it, in those situations to then immediately just to flip back to, oh, why aren't they here? I miss them so much. And I'm sure it is easy. It must be hard. I don't want to in any way come across as condescending or anything like that. But when there is that pleasure, when there is that joy, just seize upon it and embrace it and be aware of it and accept the joy and the happiness. Because often people feel guilty about it as well. So I know people who feel that they must be miserable all the time, because for whatever reason, because crappy stuff's happened in their life. You think, I don't deserve to be happy. Often that's a big one. People, a lot of people come to therapy with me because they feel they don't deserve to be happy. I don't deserve to be happy. I've got to punish myself. I must shun all forms of joy and happiness from my life because I need to punish myself. And it's such a shame. It's such a shame that people just refuse to be aware and accept moments of joy and happiness. Because we don't live in Willy Wonka's factory where it's all everything's made of chocolate and it's all technicolor and there's Oompa Loompas singing and dancing in the background. Life is hard, and so when there is joy, embrace it. Okay, that's enough waffle. Let's do some breathing. What's the time say? Right, let's breathe. And I'll invite the bold sound. So you may close your eyes if you wish to close your eyes. You may keep your eyes open if you wish to keep your eyes open. But I ask you to just connect with your breath. And be aware of the three components: breathing in, breathing out, and then pause between breaths. And for the next few moments, just follow each breath, each component of the breath as it happens. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So in the week, when you're finding your little moment to be mindful, whenever that may be, whether it's, the commercial break in between television programmes is a great opportunity. Just mute the sound, and you've got 3 minutes then. Because they're only trying to sell you rubbish.
Manipulate you.
Exactly. You can just mute it and just take a couple of minutes to just breathe and be aware of how you feel and accept how you feel. Accept how you feel about the plot that you've just about Downton Abbey. I know there's no adverts in Downton Abbey, is there? It's BBC. Well, whatever it is. But that's a good opportunity. Mute the sound in the adverts and just be mindful for 2 or 3 minutes. And then you can do it 3-4 times an hour. It's good. Top tip.
I've just got visions of my kids thinking I'm nuts anyway, and then you're walking.
Do they? Well, that's what kids are supposed to.
Some superhero pose, and they'll just look at me, just shake their heads and walk back out.
It's having the right superhero outfit, though, isn't it?
Yeah. You only have to visualise the outfit. You don't have to go out. You don't have to go out and
I
buy.
really have thought that was part of the fun.
Dressing up week.
Yeah, next week's mindfulness group Christmas party. Come as a superhero.
Don't forget your cape.
No, I think you're supposed to do it. She was advocating doing it behind closed doors. Do it in the shower. So when you're in the shower.
Use the shower curtain.
It's funny, because I used to have like a feeling running about in my head when I used to run around in the restaurant and things like that. All the time, like, be like, duh-duh-duh-duh. I'm like,
Seriously. For the 80s.
yeah. Mission Impossible when I was trying to get the kids to school. And it still runs through my head. We're running that Mission Impossible theme tune.
Like I had a telephone interview about 2 weeks ago, and I put my suit on, and I stood up, and I'm on the call, and this thing smiled, sort of smiling before I was on the phone. And I got through the interview, and I got a call back for a face-to-face one, so it seemed to work.
There you go. It does. No, it does. They say that. That's another thing. That if you're on the phone, you should smile.
Yeah.
Because
and stand up.
Yeah, it's reflected. People can tell, even on the other end of the phone, they can tell.
Can they tell when you're pulling faces at them?
I don't know.
Making gestures.
Yeah.
You think about your mother-in-law, yes.
I don't know. Try that. I'll give you my number. You can ring me, and I'll tell you whether you're smiling or whether you're pulling faces down the phone at me.
That could be a mindful exercise next time. It's like, we'll all have our eyes closed and you do a face and we'll try and
But I'd be truly mindful and I would accept whatever face you decided to pull at me in that moment in time, and I wouldn't label it or judge it as positive or negative. It just is what it is.
even with that bottle, I like that sound of the bottle.
I love it.
But to try to sort of say, not give it a label.
It's hard. It is hard not to label because our brains have been doing that for centuries. Just labelling stuff. That's good. That's bad. It goes back to survival techniques. You know, we need to, and the urge for the positive, the urge to be happy. So we have to label everything. That's good, that's bad, that's positive, that's negative, that's happy, that's sad. So that we can avoid all the negative stuff and just crave and go after all the positive stuff. But if you can let go of the labels. But so much of Eastern philosophy is about non-attachment, isn't it? Non-attachment to anything. We're not attached to property, we're not attached to people, we're not attached to how we feel, unattached to money, all of that. And if you are completely unattached, then nothing can hurt you or make you feel happy or sad. But I know you can feel joy, you feel the joy, but nothing can hurt you, nothing can make you feel anxious because you're unattached. It's a nice idea. It's very hard, very hard.
Especially in Western society.
Oh yeah, exactly.
You must have the next iPhone 6.5.
Well, you're bombarded with it for 3 minutes every 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And especially at this time of the year. You know, if I see one more Smith's Toy Store advert, I
Open
think
till
I'll go
11
mad.
o'clock.
I know.
Have you seen that? Smith's Toy Store all week, open till 11 o'clock. I had a right rant about that home.
The poor so-and-sos that work in Smith's, they must
So relax
dread
you mean,
it.
But no, Smith's Toy Shop. Yeah. Oh.
There's a big one out Westwood Cross.
Oh.
It's like Toys and Millspot.
Okay.
Why did you say I need to buy toys all week at 11 o'clock and even run up to Christmas? Sorry.
Listen, Santa's got a lot of toys to buy.
Work to do.
He's got a lot. The elves can't make all of it.
No, this is
They can't make all of it. So sometimes he has to go to Smith's. And sometimes he has to go there late at night.
Yeah, when nobody else can see you, that's fine.
The kids are asleep.
But I was told off by my 12-year-old and he told me that Santa's not to buy her underwear this year because it's a pity that an old fat man buys her underwear.
I concur with that.
I'll argue that.
No, that isn't it.